The school bully beat me up so bad I ended up in a wheelchair. And my mom. She's this hotshot lawyer and she became his defense attorney in court. She twisted everything around and got him off completely. The kid who nearly killed me walked away free. Why? Because his dad paid for her college years ago. When I called her out on it, she didn't even flinch. Everyone's equal under the law, Carl. I can't throw away my professional ethics. Just because you're the victim. Jay just lost his temper. I couldn't let his whole life get destroyed. I watched that monster walk out of the courthouse. Like nothing happened, and I just laughed. I pulled out the papers I'd already drawn up to disown her. And threw them right in her face. Since you're so ethical and so big on paying back favors, I said, I hope you're ready to defend what's left of your own pathetic life. Mom didn't even look at the papers. To her, I was just a dramatic teenager throwing a fit. Carl, are you done making a scene? He picked up the papers, crushed them without reading a word, and tossed them in the nearest trash can. Mr. Grant's throwing a thank you dinner at the Grandview tonight. You're coming. Jay will be there. He can apologize and we can all move on. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Move on. I was stuck in a wheelchair. Guy who put me here just got away with it. And she wanted me to go to his celebration dinner. I'm not going. The words came out cold and flat. I turned my wheelchair to leave. Mom's voice followed me, sharp with anger. Carl, can you stop being so petty? The Grants don't have money. This dinner is costing Mr. Grant half his monthly paycheck. If you don't show up, you're disrespecting me and him. I didn't look back. I just wheeled myself out of there as fast as I could. Getting away from that suffocating courthouse outside. The bright sun made me dizzy. Dad's car was parked at the curb. He saw me and rushed over, looking nervous and worried. Carl, what happened? Did they convict him? Looking at this man who's been a doormat his whole life, I felt completely helpless. He got off not guilty. Dad just stood there with his mouth hanging open. How could, your mom said it was just a formality. She said she'd get Jay a suspended sentence at most. How did he get acquitted? I laughed bitterly. Dad, your wife is a star lawyer. When she wants someone to walk, they walk, even if that person broke her own son's leg. Dad wrung his hands, clearly stressed. But she must have her reasons that Mr. Grant guy really did help her. Stop. I cut him off. Take me to the hospital. I'm not going home. Dad hesitated, glancing back at the courthouse. Well, your mom just texted. He says we need to go straight to the Grandview. She said if we don't show, she'll cancel my credit card. I looked at him, 50 years old and he lives like a dog. Mom controls every penny. He doesn't even dare talk back to her. Then you go. I pulled out my phone and called a wheelchair-accessible Uber. I'll get there myself. Carl. Don't do this. Dad reached for me, but I pushed his hand away. Dad, if you still think of me as your son, don't go to that dinner. If you go, don't bother visiting me again. The car showed up. The driver helped me in. Through the window, I saw Dad standing on the sidewalk, torn. Finally, he sighed, turned around and got in his car. He drove toward the Grandview. I closed my eyes and the tears finally came. This was my family. A mom with some twisted hero complex and a weak, spineless dad and me. I was the throwaway kid. The hospital. As soon as I got settled, my phone started blowing up. Jay had posted a bunch of photos on social media. In the pictures, he's holding champagne, looking smug as hell. My mom sat at the head of the table, smiling like everything was perfect. The caption, thanks, Aunt Susan. Justice might be slow, but it always wins. Cheers, Justice. Screw his justice. I opened the comments full of ass kissing from Jay's buddies. Jay's the man. Susan's a legal genius. Where's the cripple? Didn't he show up to toast you? Jay's reply, probably crying at home. Haha. I stared at the screen, my hands shaking. Then a new notification popped up. A money transfer from mom. Amount, $300 note. Stop sulking. Buy yourself something nice. I told Mr. Grant. He doesn't need to pay your medical bills. They're struggling financially. We need to be understanding. I stared at those words feeling sick. I wanted to throw up. I threw the phone at the wall. I stayed in the hospital for 3 days. Mom never came, but Mr. Grant did. Carrying a basket of bruised, half-rotten apples, stood in the doorway in his dirty work clothes. Grinning like we were old friends. Carl, my boy uncle's here to see you. He put the apples on the nightstand and rubbed his rough hands together. My Jay, he doesn't know his own strength. Gets a little rough. I gave him a good talking to. And look, your mom got him off the hook. So we're even now, right? Even. I looked at the basket of apples. Probably pulled from someone's trash and laughed. My leg is worth a basket of rotten apples. Mr. Grant's face twitched. But he quickly smiled again. Now, Carl. Don't be like that. When your mom went to college, I scraped together that money penny by penny. You gotta have a conscience. Look how reasonable your mother is. Besides, your family is rich. You're not hurting for a little medical money, right? My Jay needs to get married. He can't be stuck with debt, right? Then I finally got what shameless really means. This family was a bunch of leeches. And my mom was the idiot who not only let them suck her blood, but complained they weren't taking enough. Get out, I said, pointing at the door. Take your rotten apples and get out. The smile finally dropped from Mr. Grant's face. What's your problem, kid? No wonder Jay beat you up. You're asking for it. He stormed out muttering curses and spat on the floor. On his way out, I hit the call button and asked the nurse to disinfect the room. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. That afternoon, the head nurse came in with a bill. She didn't look happy. Carl. Your account is past due. If you don't pay, we'll have to stop your meds. I was shocked. Past due. My mom, Susan Cole, didn't pay. The nurse shook her head. Miss Cole came by yesterday. She requested a refund of the $50,000 deposit. She said the other family was having financial problems. She was lending them the money. She said you'd have to figure it out on your own. Snap. That was it. I lost it. She refunded my life-saving medical money since. To give to the guy who assaulted me. What kind of mother does that? My hands shaking, I borrowed the nurse's phone and called her. It rang forever. Before she picked up, I could hear mahjong tiles clicking. And Mom's cheerful laugh in the background. Hello, who is this? It's me. Silence for a second. Then her voice annoyed. Carl. Where's your phone? Why are you calling from a random number? Susan, did you refund my medical deposit? I used her first name. Is that how you talk to your mother? She snapped, her voice getting louder. The Grants are buying a house in the city. And we're short on the down payment. I figured you weren't using much at the hospital. So I let them borrow it. Don't you have your own savings? Use those. You can't be so selfish. You need to help people in need. Help people in need. I was breaking my bones to keep someone else warm. That was my surgery money. I yelled into the phone. The doctor said, I need a second surgery next week or I'll be disabled for life. You gave that money to the Grants for a house. Are you insane? I could hear Mr. Grant's voice in the background. Oh, Susan. If Carl needs it right away, we can wait on the house. Then Mom's firm voice. Don't listen to him, Mr. Grant. He's being dramatic. Doctors always exaggerate. It's not that serious. Buying a house is important. Jay needs to start dating. How's he supposed to do that without a house? Carl, figure it out yourself. Stop bothering me. Beep. Beep, Beep. She hung up on me. I just stood there with the phone in my hand, frozen. The head nurse looked at me with pity. Carl, maybe call your father. My father, the guy who has to ask his wife for cigarette money. I shook my head, no. It's fine. Just get my discharge papers ready. But your leg, I'm not getting it fixed. If the world was this messed up, I didn't need to pretend to be the good son anymore. I went home one last time when nobody was there. I packed up everything that was mine. Left nothing but those disownment papers. My sneaker collection, my limited edition collectibles. The gold bars I've been saving since I was a kid. I sold it all online, deep discounts. Cash only. With that money, I rented a small, accessible apartment in the next city. Then I checked myself into a private orthopedic hospital. I'd missed the best time for treatment. But the doctor said with enough money, there was still a chance I could walk normally again. But no more intense sports. I used to be captain of the school basketball team. Now I was a cripple who couldn't walk without limping. But I didn't cry. I'd run out of tears that afternoon. The first year was a blur of white ceilings and the smell of disinfectant. I didn't just lose my legs' functionality, I lost who I was. The basketball captain was dead. In his place was a guy who gritted his teeth until they cracked just to stand up during physical therapy. The doctors were right, money could buy function, but it couldn't buy miracles. I regained the ability to walk, but the limp was permanent, a hitch in my step that served as a metronome for my hatred. I didn't hear from my mother. Not once. I did, however, keep tabs on them. It wasn't hard. Susan Cole was a public figure, and Jay was a loudmouth on social media. I watched from a distance as my mother bought the Grants that house. I saw the photos of the housewarming party. My dad was there in the background, looking thinner, grayer, holding a tray of drinks like a servant while Mr. Grant sat in his armchair, laughing with a cigar in his mouth. It fueled me. I enrolled in a university on the other side of the country. I didn't study law. I didn't want to be anything like her. I studied finance and data forensics. I wanted to understand how money moved, how to hide it, and more importantly, how to find it when people didn't want it found. I lived like a monk. I invested the remaining money from my collectibles into aggressive, high-risk stocks. I didn't sleep. I didn't party. When my leg throbbed at night, I opened my laptop and learned to hunt. By the time I was 25, I was a junior partner at a boutique forensic accounting firm in Chicago. We were the people corporations called when the numbers didn't add up and they suspected the CEO was buying yachts with pension funds. I was ruthless. I had a reputation for being cold, efficient, and utterly devoid of empathy for sob stories. Everyone has a reason, I told a weeping executive once as I handed over the evidence of his embezzlement to the FBI. It doesn't make you innocent. I was building an arsenal. And back home, the rot was spreading. The call didn't come from my mother. It came from the county coroner. Carl Cole. Speaking. I'm sorry to inform you, but your father passed away last night. Heart failure. I sat in my corner office, looking out at the Chicago skyline. I felt nothing. And then, a tidal wave of rage. Where was he? He was at home. He was alone for quite some time before he was found. Where was his wife? There was a pause. We had trouble reaching Mrs. Cole. Apparently, she was away on vacation. I flew back the next morning. The funeral was a farce. It was held at a prestigious funeral home, clearly arranged to make Susan look like the grieving widow. She stood by the casket in a black designer dress, dabbing at dry eyes. And there they were. The Grants. Mr. Grant was wearing a suit that was too tight, looking older but just as smug. Jay stood next to him. He had gotten fat. His face was puffy, his eyes bloodshot. He looked like a man who had never been told no in his entire life. I walked in. The cane I used was sleek, black carbon fiber with a silver handle. The tap, tap, tap on the marble floor cut through the hushed whispers. Susan looked up. Her eyes went wide. She hadn't seen me in 7 years. I wasn't the scrawny teenager in a wheelchair anymore. I was 6'2", wearing a $3,000 suit, and I looked exactly like the man my father should have been. Carl, she breathed. She took a step forward, arms open. Oh, my God. Carl, you came. I sidestepped her hug. She stumbled slightly, catching her balance. Where were you? I asked. My voice wasn't loud, but it carried. What? When Dad died. Where were you? Susan straightened her jacket, her lawyer mask sliding back into place. I was in Cabo. The Grants. Jay was having a crisis, a mental health episode. They needed support. I had to go. A crisis in Cabo, I repeated flatly. Dad had a heart condition. He needed medication. I checked his accounts, Susan. The pharmacy auto refill was declined 2 weeks ago. Insufficient funds. The room went deadly silent. Don't do this here, she hissed, her eyes darting around at the guests, judges, other lawyers, clients. We are grieving. You aren't grieving, I said. You're networking. Mr. Grant stepped forward, putting a heavy hand on my shoulder. Now listen here, son. Your mother is a saint. She sacrificed. I didn't look at him. I just took my cane and shoved it hard against his chest, pushing him back. Touch me again, I said, looking him dead in the eye, and I will buy the mortgage on that house my mother bought you, foreclose on it, and bulldoze it while you're still inside eating breakfast. Mr. Grant blinked, the color draining from his face. He sensed it. The power dynamic had shifted. He wasn't talking to a crippled boy anymore. Jay stepped up, trying to look tough. You think you're big time now, cripple. I looked at Jay. I see you're still using cocaine, right? I can see the tremors. Jay flinched. I turned back to the casket. I placed a hand on the wood. Goodbye, Dad. Sorry you were too weak to leave. I turned and walked out. Susan followed me to the parking lot. Carl. You ungrateful brat. After everything I did. I spun around. What exactly did you do, Mother? I raised you. I put a roof over your head. You sold me out, I said. You traded my legs for your ego. You wanted to play the savior for the man who paid for your degree, so you let his son break mine. Jay made a mistake. He was a child. And now? I asked. Is he still a child? Because I looked up his record. DUI, 2 assault charges dropped, a harassment suit settled out of court. You're still cleaning up his messes, aren't you? Susan crossed her arms. Family helps family. The Grants are family. And what am I? She didn't answer. Enjoy the funeral, Susan, I said. I'm staying in town for a while. I have some business to attend to. What business? I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Justice. I didn't leave. I rented a suite at the Grandview, the same hotel where she had celebrated Jay's acquittal all those years ago. I went to work. My firm had resources. I pulled Susan's financials. It was worse than I thought. She was a partner at her firm, making good money, but she was hemorrhaging cash. The Grants were a black hole. Jay had a gambling addiction. Mr. Grant had business ideas that were just scams. Susan had paid off bookies, paid off victims, paid for rehabs Jay never finished. But the math didn't work. She was spending more than she earned. Where is it coming from? I muttered to myself, staring at the spreadsheets at 3:00 a.m. Then I found it. A hidden escrow account managed by her firm. It was for a class action settlement, orphans of a chemical spill. Millions of dollars sitting there, waiting for distribution. There were withdrawals. Small ones at first. Then bigger. Loans she probably told herself she would pay back. She had stolen $3 million from a fund for sick children to pay for Jay Grant's lifestyle. I sat back in my chair. It was the smoking gun. But I didn't want to just fire it. I wanted it to hurt. I needed Jay to do something undeniable. I needed the Grants to drag her down so deep she could never surface. I hired a private investigator to tail Jay. It took 3 days. Jay was meeting with a loan shark in a dive bar. He owed big. The shark was threatening him. Jay was crying, promising his Aunt Susan would fix it. I waited. 2 days later, Susan liquidated her own retirement fund. It wasn't enough. She was going to dip into the escrow account again. I made a phone call to the managing partner of Susan's law firm, a man named Sterling. Mr. Sterling, I said. My name is Carl Cole. I'm looking to acquire a significant stake in your firm's debt, and I have some information regarding a liability that might bankrupt you if the Bar Association finds out before you do. Sterling listened. He was a smart man. He invited me in. I walked into my mother's law firm on a Tuesday morning. The receptionist tried to stop me, but Sterling came out and shook my hand. He led me to the conference room. Susan was there, along with the other partners. When she saw me, she went pale. Carl. What are you doing here? Mr. Cole is here as a consultant, Sterling said coldly. We're auditing the escrow accounts, Susan. Susan dropped her pen. Why? That's irregular. Is it? I asked, taking a seat at the head of the table. Because I have the transaction logs right here. I slid a folder across the table. Susan didn't open it. She knew what was inside. Carl, she whispered. Please. Everyone's equal under the law, Susan, I quoted her words back to her. I can't throw away my professional ethics just because you're my mother. Sterling looked at the documents. His face turned purple. You stole from the chemical spill fund. Susan, are you insane? I was going to put it back, she cried, standing up. I just needed time. The grants, they were in danger. The grants, Sterling spat. You embezzled $3 million for a white trash family that's been leeching off you for decades. They paid for my college, she screamed, losing her composure. I owed them. You owed them tuition. I slammed my hand on the table. Not your soul. Not my legs. And certainly not $3 million of client money. You don't understand loyalty, she yelled at me. I understand consequences, I said. Mr. Sterling, the police are waiting in the lobby. I took the liberty of calling them. Susan looked at me with pure hatred. You did this. You planned this. Yes, I said. I did. As the officers came in to handcuff her, her phone buzzed on the table. It was Jay. I picked it up. Aunt Susan. Jay's voice blared through the speaker. Did you get the money? These guys are gonna break my thumbs. She can't come to the phone right now, Jay, I said. Carl. Put her on. I need the money. The ATM is closed, Jay. Permanently. I hung up and handed the phone to the police as evidence. The scandal was massive. Star lawyer steals from orphans to fund bullies' gambling. The press ate it up. Susan was disbarred immediately. Her assets were frozen. The house she lived in, the car, everything was seized to pay back the firm and the clients. But I wasn't done with the grants. Without Susan's protection, Jay's world collapsed within 48 hours. The loan sharks didn't care about his excuses. They found him. They broke both his legs and his right arm. He ended up in the county hospital, the same one where I had stayed. I went to visit him. He was in traction, face bruised, looking pathetic. Mr. Grant was sitting in the corner, looking like a ghost. He was wearing dirty clothes. The bank had already foreclosed on their house because Susan had stopped paying the mortgage months ago in secret. Get out, Mr. Grant croaked. I brought you something, I said. I placed a basket on the nightstand. It was full of bruised, half-rotten apples. Mr. Grant stared at them. His hand started to shake. We're even now, right? I said, my voice ice cold. You devil, Mr. Grant whispered. No, I said. I'm just the guy who paid his debts. You paid for Susan's college. Fine. She paid you back with her career and her freedom. But Jay owed me a life. I looked at Jay. He was awake, staring at me with terror. You're going to prison, Jay, I said. The police found the drugs in your car when they scraped you off the pavement. And since Susan isn't around to twist the law anymore, you're looking at 10 years with your record. Jay started to sob. Help me. Please. We're family. I have no family, I said. My father is dead. And my mother is in a cell. I turned to leave. Wait. Mr. Grant begged, grabbing my sleeve. Carl, please. We have nothing. We're on the street. Help us. Just a little money. For your dad's sake. I pulled my arm away. I looked at this man who had manipulated my mother's guilt for 30 years. My dad, I said, is dead because he didn't have the money for his heart medication. Because Susan gave it to you. I leaned in close. Every time you feel cold, every time you're hungry, every time you sleep under a bridge, remember that. You ate his life. Now you can starve. The trial was swift. Susan pleaded guilty. She looked 20 years older in the orange jumpsuit. She refused to look at me in the gallery. She got 15 years. Jay got 8. I stayed in town just long enough to see the gavel come down. After the trial, I went to the cemetery. I had bought a new headstone for my dad. It was beautiful, black marble. Thomas Cole. A good man who deserved better. I stood there for a long time. The wind was cold, but for the first time in years, the ache in my leg felt manageable. The weight was gone. I walked back to my car. My driver opened the door. Where to, Mr. Cole? Back to Chicago. I looked back at the courthouse, then at the sky. Yeah, I said. Let's go home. I wasn't the basketball captain anymore. I wasn't the victim. I was Carl Cole. And I was finally free.